That's called winging it.
We are definitely winging it.
Am I allowed to just put my legs up like this?
I think that's fine. I'm going to cross my legs.
Okay.
Do you feel
Mine are
comfortable?
crossed too.
This is more comfortable than the previous chairs.
They're more comfortable. We're also closer. So depending on where you are in the spectrum today, it could be more comfortable or uncomfortable.
Well, anyway.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Will. I'm Andrew Panic.
I'm Will Schaeferman.
And this is Accessibly Anglican,
A podcast for the Anglo-curious.
Now in our new format. Can we talk about the podcast for a minute?
Yeah. Come on.
As you pointed out, we had 18 faithful listeners before we stopped like a year ago. And now we're back, baby.
Yeah. Boom.
Right here in the midst of the World Cup and the world ending.
Yeah, somewhere in between those two.
Caught him between the World Cup and the world ending.
Yes.
Tune in next time
Certainly
to see
the
which
world
it
ending
is.
for the U.S. men's team.
Whew. Are they out now?
They're out.
All right.
So we're recording this the day after U.S. went out of the World Cup.
Even though we tried to cheat our way in.
Even though there was lots of controversy beforehand, that I have my own opinions on whether that affected the outcome of the game.
No, go ahead. Tell us about it. Because I thought what you had to say was very interesting.
So if you don't know, if you don't follow this at all, if your head's under a rock like Andrew, you will know, unless you don't know, last week, the U.S. men's team, they got a red card. Their best player, his name is Balogun. That's the one.
That's an American
Flo
name.
Balogun. Okay, interestingly, so there's so much irony with all these things. He is our best player, arguably, certainly our best attacker, best goal scorer, statistically. He's a birthright citizen. So he was born here in Brooklyn. His mom was here for a month after he was born, and then they went back to the UK. He gets a red card in the last game, and if you don't know soccer, not only are you kicked out of that current game when you get a red card, but you miss the next game.
See, I didn't know that about the next game.
It's a wrinkle. And everyone was devastated because our first real big test against Belgium was the following game. It was the round of 16, which is the furthest that U.S. men's teams ever made it. We always bail out at that stage because we actually play real opponents. And Balogun is like, dang, I'm going to miss the game that they most need me for. And everyone else was thinking the same thing, including a man named President Trump. And President Trump just so happens to make a call to the president of FIFA, Infantino, who is, let's just say, not corrupt. And they work out a deal, and of course Trump truths out on his platform the fact that he made this deal happen, and then he corroborates that with a public announcement later in the day. Anyway, the point is, Sunday afternoon, everyone's like, oh, Balogun's back in. And if you're like anybody with a conscience, you feel very strange about this because on the one hand, you're excited for the kid to be able to play. On the other hand, you're like, this isn't right. And this is totally ruining the integrity of sport when the leader of a nation comes in to like change the outcome of a rule. There was controversy because the red card was very harsh. And a lot of people thought it wasn't a real red card. But regardless, they're bad calls in sports. And you just got to live with the consequences. That's it. But the interesting irony of all this, Trump is going to bat for a player who's never lived a single day in America, who is by definition
30 days,
a birthright citizen, which of course, if you've paid attention to other parts of the news, you'll know that he's been slaying this part of our nation's heritage. The Supreme Court shut him down recently, but barely. Anyway, regardless of where you land on the spectrum of birthright citizenship, I can see the case both ways. The point is, he's going to bat for a guy for the very thing that, who qualifies to be on the men's team for the very thing that he was trying to undercut. Anyway, just the irony is so thick. But last night, the men's team gets destroyed, even with their best player by Belgium. And there's just a part of me and lots of other people are like, that just probably should have been the right outcome. Like, if the United States had won after all of that, it just would have felt bad. And it's a lose-lose because now the world's like, yeah, see, you guys, no matter, even if you cheat, you're still going to lose. And even if we had won, everyone would have been like, you guys suck because you cheated your way into this. And so there wasn't winning. And the thing is, I think the men's team, this is my personal opinion, probably would have played better had that not happened.
Oh, sure. It was probably on their conscience.
It was on their conscience. And not only would they have been free of that conscience piece, but they would have felt like we got wronged by that red card. So they would have played lights out. Now instead, it's Belgium who's like, we were wronged because you guys shouldn't have had this guy in there. So they played lights out. I just think the whole thing is, there seems to be this pattern where certain individuals step into the picture and things that were going really well no longer go really well. People drew allusions to the Knicks. The only finals game that the Knicks lost on their home turf was at their own stadium. I was in the game 3 that this individual came to, and he was booed by everyone. And again, I'm not poo-pooing on statesmen. I'm just saying there is an interesting pattern here, which is worthy of reflection.
So anyway,
am I getting too controversial already, Andrew?
Are we gonna be honest this time around?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Well, anyway, that brings up. Then I'll be really honest, and that brings up the question, the topic for today's podcast. So I before all of that, I asked if we could talk about the podcast, and I think that we addressed a lot of Anglican facts the last time around. So this time it's going to be much more of our opinion and
seen through the lens of what has shaped us as Anglicans.
Yeah. Hopefully your opinion is always rooted in that.
And I think it should
rooted in the
also,
gospel more specifically.
That's right. And it should also be disclosed, I think, too, that this iteration of Accessibly Anglican, not only is it not like answering questions about what is Anglicanism, because you can find all that stuff on the internet. You don't need another, 2 white guys to tell you all about Anglicanism. There are a lot of that happening already. But I think what we're trying to do is, what we want to do is speak to some of the issues and questions and topics that our own local Anglican church here in Birmingham, Alabama is thinking about and processing together. A lot of things that you and I already talk about. That's going to be a lot of the fodder for this conversation, for this podcast.
And if you just so happen to be in Birmingham and you tend to agree with us, Restoration might be a good place for you. And if you don't agree with us, you can still come to church and you can punch Will for free.
I've had a lot of punches over the years.
If that brings you into the church, but you have to stay for the service after you punch him, or punch him at the end, maybe,
or just before communion. Then we can make peace together.
Right.
And then we'll be all squared up.
So we're gonna try to pick up on a conversation. Me and Will always have great conversations off the camera, and then you try to recreate it on camera, and it's always awkward. But we got there Sunday morning, and we sat down, and you asked me about my 4th of July. I planted a pumpkin patch.
Yeah, you did.
Which is arguably very Anglican, very
earthy.
We talk a lot about that, and me and my little boy planted a pumpkin patch, and I'm very excited.
We'll keep you updated on
how you'll absolutely be hearing about my pumpkin
how the
patch,
vines will be growing.
But then basically the question that came up, I'll put a little skip ahead to this point for people who don't care about all the other stuff. How do you feel about this 4th of July? Although that was really
my question to you.
That was really more of your question to me, and my answer was conflicted, as I think a lot of people.
I even think it would be safe to say it was pretty one-sided, at the moment at least. Is that not correct?
Wait, what is
your response to the question? Was less conflicted and more just
probably. Yes. I think what I was trying to present to you was a little more conflict, because the conversation sort of started with Will saying, I really want to be aware and grateful for the things that we have as a result of this nation. And I think that is a very fair and balanced way to look at it. And except that my feeling this year was more, I think, about the war in Iran, which Iran so far away. Regardless of if you feel that it's justified or not, the fact of the matter is, it is a terrible thing that is taking place. For both sides, it is bad. And it's not happening here. Vietnam didn't happen here. Korea, World War II, World War I. Like, we get to live in this incredibly safe, secure environment, which is certainly something to be grateful for. And I was never trying to argue that it wasn't, but it's hard to feel good about that with the cost that comes from it, both from our troops that have paid the price for it, and also people around the world that have suffered, whether it's death or whether it's having to leave their homes or even just general fear of what might happen because these wars are happening on their shores.
Andrew, you sound so woke right now.
I know. If anyone, any sizable population actually starts listening to this, they're probably gonna think that you're a liberal too.
For sure.
Will's pretty conservative.
Not for Birmingham, but compared to I don't know how to.
That's another thing that you need to know if you're listening outside of Birmingham is the political spectrum is weirdly skewed here in a way that I couldn't even really explain. But for all intents and purposes, if you need to think about us, think of me as a lib, I guess. I think that's a little too, and that's something that we've talked a lot about. Is I think that's a little too narrow because that's something else that we got into on Sunday. Is
because there are a lot of things that if you were to be pressed on, a true quote lib would feel like you were not part of that camp.
Oh, sure, and I've been told that plenty of times. I've been told plenty of times that I'm like not a liberal by people that are more liberal than me.
Yeah, it's all a question of gradation,
right?
Or issue. Let's say it's a question of which issues do you have a perspective on that align with or do not align with a particular platform. And we've talked about this multiple times on this podcast, which is really aligned with the late Tim Keller, which is, historically Christians, and you go back to the early church, historical Christianity in terms of the way it's thought about the world and its place within it, there are a list of things that Christians could be viewed in terms of as conservatives, whether that's sanctity of life or traditional understanding of sexuality. But there are other issues that historic Christianity has been probably more aligned with what we think of today as more progressive values, things like social justice and caring for the sojourner and being engaged in not just the vertical relationship with God, but how God is redeeming his whole creation. So I do think it, as Anglicans, but even more broadly as Christians, you and I have talked a lot about how those particular badges don't really apply because there are things that we are inherently going to be in concert with and things that we're inherently in conflict with. And it's okay to have a particular party that you vote for or whatever, but it's not like you shouldn't ever fully feel at home in a particular platform. If you do, you're probably missing something.
Sure. To make this an interesting podcast,
yes.
And now that we've added all these caveats,
are we going to go back to July 4th at some point?
We're still talking about July 4th.
All right, cool.
And that is to say that I did not feel particularly patriotic. I felt a lot of bad feelings about things that America has done and is doing. Mm-hmm. And it is popular. Again, I don't think our viewership is really going to have a large enough sample size for anyone to vehemently disagree with me. If you do, that's great. Comment, email us something.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about it. But the fact of the matter is that no, I do not hate America and I don't despise the privileges that I have for living here. I'm very aware of them. I'm very grateful. I'm very aware of a lot of things that make my life really good and comfortable. I just also recognize that those things came at a cost.
Sure.
A cost that I did not pay, a cost that I didn't choose, and were it all up to me, I don't know, we'd probably be a lot worse off if everything were up to me. But
when we, keep going.
I think that it just comes down to the idea that like every privilege that you can enjoy comes at the cost of somebody else. However you want to look at that, because
clarify that, because I'm not sure if I agree. Keep going.
So, we have this land because we took it. Whether or not you think this is okay, the fact is we took it from people that were already living here.
Yep.
We have very cheap oil because we maintain control over the Middle East. Am I sad that my gas is not $10 a gallon? I can't lie. I'm pretty glad it's not, but it's still at the cost of other people.
And I agree with you there. I think where I would make a small nuance is there are examples that you've just given that are perfectly clear where blessing comes at the cost of something else. I don't think that's always the case. I think there are situations in life where there is win-win, where there is blessing for the whole, not just zero-sum game. It's not like I have to take this in order to find blessing. Like, think about this. Like, we're sitting here. I didn't even mean to talk about Ashley's practice, but we're sitting here, and if you're in Birmingham, here's a perfectly unintentional plug.
This podcast is brought to you by Seeds Pediatrics. Seeds Pediatrics.
Okay,
the Anglican choice.
It's actually probably a bad example because now I'm going to be accused of like trying to. Anyway,
no, do it. Go ahead. It's our podcast. We can do what we want.
Whatever we want to. My wife started this practice, right? She started it for multiple reasons, but one of which was to have better work-life balance and to be able to have more intentional time and care toward her patients. So it's what's called a direct primary care practice, meaning you don't pay transactionally for your medical care, right? Instead of, there's something strange going on outside. You hear that?
It's just somebody whistling.
Okay. There is a model, right, of transactional medicine. You pay per service, and that has all sorts of conflict of interest involved in it. Like, if your kid is sick, wakes up throwing up during the school year, and in order not to be pursued by the truancy officer, you have to have a school note, right? But the doctor office won't give you that unless you come in and they verify that you're sick, which again, like, okay, for trust-based purposes, but in some cases, like when you've seen a family time and time again, they're not gonna like just lie to you that your kid's throwing up or they got a fever or whatever. Like you have to go in there because they don't get paid otherwise. There are others, I can give you a whole list of reasons why it's just sticky in some situations. But this model is it's a monthly fee that people pay, and they have all access directly to their physician. They get all the primary care services provided in that monthly fee. And it's more like, if you've ever been in the financial planning world, there is like people that just sell products, and there are people that just like do like a retainer, and all of your financial advice and investment vehicles, all that's wrapped up in that one fee. And so it's just a lot less conflict of interest. The reason I give this as an example, tying back to like benefit, right? Not only is this a blessing to Ashley because it gives her better work-life balance, it gives her a better sense of her, being able to be present to her patients, et cetera. But it's medically speaking, it is better for the patient. Like they don't have as much conflict of interest. They have more convenience, better care. She schedules an hour for each well visit. And for the people that can't, quote, afford that service, she's carved out a whole 10% of her patient population that are either zero to low fee for their monthly services. And so the argument goes for a lot of these folks is like, if every practice started doing this and just basically offered their own version of Medicaid, the system would be a lot better off. Because it's not having to go through all the hoops. You don't have to like deal with all the headaches. It's just like, look, you can just have a free membership. And anyway, the point is, I don't think everything in life is a zero-sum game. I think there are situations where you do the right thing, and it not only benefits you, but it benefits the other party. If you disagree with that, push back. I just don't think the world was built inherently as a zero-sum game.
I don't think it was built inherently as a zero-sum game. I think that the fall of man pretty much made it a zero-sum game.
If somebody comes to our church, that's a blessing to them, we hope. It's also a blessing to us because it keeps us in business, so to speak, right? Like, you see what I'm saying? Meaning, like, a church needs people to be able to support it. And hopefully, it's not just a unilateral direction of blessing, it's both ways. I mean, like, where am I wrong in that?
In that, not. But maybe
only
that's
because it's spiritual?
Yeah.
But what about the example I just gave?
Of the
practice.
Of the practice? I mean, the sacrifice still comes in that you and Ashley had to invest money into this and a lot of time. And not that these are bad things, but I guess my point is that everything has a trade-off.
Yes.
Some are severe
maybe
and some are not.
But is that negative? Is having to invest time and money and et cetera, et cetera?
In a sense, it's like, if she wanted to, maybe she could stay at home just with y'all's kids all the time and not work. The trade-off being that you'd probably have to like live in a different house maybe, and the fact that I completely agree. I think this is a great business model.
Sure.
And people would not then have that because she's not giving her time to that. So there are still trade-offs, but she could spend all of her time with your kids, which would also be great.
That's fair. But then she'd have a sanity trade-off.
Right. Fair enough.
We love our kids.
We do love our kids.
Ashley's also really gifted, and I think
absolutely.
Anyway, we could talk all day. The podcast is not meant to be talking about my wife's practice, but I will give her a shout out because she deserves it.
The point is just, for me, yes, we have wonderful things in this country. I think you can be grateful for them while also recognizing that they came at a cost to somebody, and it's usually not you. I have not sacrificed a lot in my life for the comforts that I have.
100%.
A little,
and there can be gratitude in some cases, right? Like, not gratitude because the land was taken from another people group that lived here before. That's grief, right? But there are, in the other vein, there are things that people did sacrifice, even just thinking about like what it took to get on the Mayflower and come across the ocean, and the perils of children dying of scurvy and whatever, right? That is true so that you would enjoy comfort. It doesn't mean that the other part is okay, but I think that's where our conversation went on Sunday, which is basically any blessing that you receive, and this is maybe the point you're making and that ultimately we're agreeing upon, which is any blessing that you receive in this life that is material, not merely just like salvation, right? Any blessing that you have that has any kind of like earthy nature to it, like the comfort of air conditioning in your home, living in a modern society, developed country, right? Those blessings are mediated through human endeavors and human institutions, which are inherently human and therefore are broken, right? They have flaws, and sometimes those flaws are very deep, and sometimes those flaws contribute to the humans that are part of those groups hurting other humans or hurting the earth. Right? There's no such thing as a blessing that isn't coming out of human reality.
Right, and that's
maybe that's what you're trying to say.
That is kind of what I'm trying to say, and it makes it hard to really celebrate. So to be less political,
yeah, come on,
let's pivot. We are filming this, and mine is over there on an iPhone.
Your what is?
We're filming this on an iPhone. My iPhone's over there. We both have iPhones.
Yep.
the lithium
Yep.
for the batteries in those. Most people are familiar. It's not.
Right. Stripped
It's
out
not
of,
fair
yeah.
trade. It's often children that are being exploited.
Mm-hmm.
Their bodies are suffering.
Cobalt as well.
Cobalt, yeah. These mines are terrible, and they're often run by people that, like, the people that are doing the work aren't really getting the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they get paid something,
And getting exposed to harmful chemicals
and they're
as a
getting exposed to
result.
harmful chemicals, probably without proper PPE. This is a specific example. Maybe some of these issues have been mediated, but, like, especially as Christians, is it worth that for us to have phones?
Yeah, that's a great question.
But at the same time,
you
it
wouldn't be listening
feels
to this
so-
amazing podcast.
Well, right. I was going to go in a slightly different direction just to say that it feels almost impossible. It's like you almost can't have a phone
Today, that's correct.
today, and any phone that you buy, whether it's Apple or whether they're all going to have the same issue.
And this is the same point. Let me tell you that, like, if you have a 401k, if you have any kind of investment product, if you have money invested in anything besides just like your savings account, right? It's usually put into like an index fund that's invested into thousands of companies. Are all of those companies running purely benevolent businesses? Probably not. And yet, you're reaping the benefit of them in order to be able to retire. That's a good goal. And even they have funds that are like social equity goals. Like they're trying to like only invest in certain companies that have like ESG, like environmental, social, and governance factors taken into, but like they're such like light factors. It's not like they're really, so it's so hard. And I'm sure there's an investment advisor out there somewhere. It's like, I have the thing, you know, like we know how to avoid the bad ones and get, you know, like.
And you're only going to get 3% growth.
Exactly.
So then how do we, like, basically, how do we live in light of that?
That's right. That's the question, isn't it?
Because if I'm completely honest, I don't want to come off as or feel in my heart like ashamed of America.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not ashamed that I'm from here, partially because I didn't have a say in it. But I also, again, that's kind of the same thing. I don't necessarily feel a ton of pride about it either because I didn't choose it. I could have just as easily been born in North Korea, which most people objectively agree is pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
And so how am I grateful, even to God, how can I be grateful for these things that have like nefarious origins?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think it's also, you know, the Bible's really good at giving us prisms through which to understand our human experience. And some of those, you know, look at the book of Psalms is like all of those prisms in one, in various Psalms. And some of those prisms are celebration and gratitude and praise. Thank you, God, for XYZ, you know, for watering the earth and this abundant crop that we get to enjoy. All the cattle of the field are plump and ripe, you know, the vegetables are ripe, and, you know, all these, like, it's gratitude, thanksgiving, it's celebration, feasting. And then there's lament and grief and recognition of the brokenness of our own hearts and the brokenness of the world and of creation at large. And those are all part of what it means to exist and respond to life in this world. I think about like the question of like, how should I feel as a Christian with regard to my country? Like what we know is this: it's if all you feel like is this is like the best place in the world, you're probably overlooking certain things, right? Like the friends that you know that are just like, America, America, we love it, love it, love it. It's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like it doesn't take too much effort to see all of the broken aspects of this place. On the other hand, it seems like it's the wrong response to only be like, this place sucks. There's like nothing redemptive about it. Like there's just shame to be part of it. And I'll be honest with you, I feel a lot of that. Like, you know, the things that have happened the last few years in our country, there's a lot to feel weighty about. You know, the way we've interacted with the world, the way that we have acted as if the world is ours to just disrupt at any given moment, that we have some sort of special privilege and special dispensation from God to go around just being the bully. That doesn't sit well, shouldn't sit well for any Christian. And it makes me sad that our relationship with the rest of the international community is so destroyed because of it.
Until they came over here for the World Cup and tried Arby's.
And they loved it. Here's the thing, we talked about this in jest earlier, but it's worth bringing it up in the podcast. You know, there was actually a lot of positivity generated from people from the international community coming to America and eating Zaxby's or getting a sub from like a Chicago deli. And there was just a lot of like people like, these people are so cool. Like a lot of Americans are actually good people. And then let's be honest, you have this happen on Sunday afternoon where the news breaks that the red card's been rescinded because of a political move. And now the world's back to, oh yeah, that was just like a temporary, like, guys, I see what really America's all about. And that sucks because I don't want that to be our brand. I don't have a lot of control over that. I have a very minimal amount of control over that. The only control we really have is what people experience, which is actual individuals within the country.
Which I was about to say, it's I guess it is worth thinking about, like, most of the actions and the things that I'm thinking of were the actions of a few powerful people throughout our history. But if you go around, especially if you can avoid talking about politics, most people kind of rock.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of Americans are good people.
Yeah. Just like I think if you go...
Even North Korea. I'm sure you can go to North Korea.
And I'm sure most of them are
really awesome people.
Now, I feel like we have to caveat or explain a little bit. What do you mean by a good person?
That feels like going deep theological.
Well, yeah, no, let's do it. So I'm Presbyterian, and no one is good, no, not one. That's from Romans,
which is the
Presbyterian national anthem.
No, the epistle according to the Presbyterians.
Yes, that's right.
Jess, we love our Presbyterian friends, and if you let us use your building for meeting in, we love you even more.
Yeah, if you have a church. And you have space for 150 people, please let us know. But it's like, you know, it is related, because what I'm saying here is America is, for a lot of people, even disadvantaged people, this is a very nuanced thing. It'd take way too long to caveat everything. But even for disadvantaged people in America, in a lot of situations, there are opportunities
to
receive help.
That's right.
And for a large middle class, shrinking, but a large middle class, we get to enjoy a very comfortable life. And a lot of that is because of my parents.
That's right.
And I got to go to college and, whatever, all these different things that led me here. And so it's good and bad. And just like that, I think that people, by and large, if you are just associating them, we flatten people so much into like good or bad categories.
That's right.
Most people on a day-to-day basis are pretty good. But if you give any of us the chance, we'll probably do the wrong thing.
Well, this is the Solzhenitsyn line, or is it Dostoevsky? One of those Russians that's, famous for saying the line between good and evil runs directly through the human heart. Right? So on any given day,
it's a good line.
We show our ugliness or our gloriousness as image bearers of God. And not just any given day, any given hour. So yeah, it's a good point. But I think the generalized point to make is that, like, what people experienced coming over here for the World Cup was people who you don't see in the news.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different.
You only see Florida man.
You don't. Yeah, exactly. And that was refreshing. And I know it didn't fully take away from that, but it felt like when this insertion happened, it just brought us right back to where we started.
Yeah.
And if there was any growing benefit of affection toward America, it felt like that was just, it was like at some point you're like, are you trying to make people hate us? I don't know. And again, I have to be careful with my words. I'm always trying to be respectful of the office of our leaders. I don't mean any of that to be poo-pooing. I just think it's important to recognize that our actions and words have great consequence, especially when we have high offices. Do you think we should close up there? Should we have any last epilogue to the conversation?
I think we could epilogue for a moment.
Okay.
Because what I want to ask you another question, pastor who's been to seminary, no pressure, but and this is almost like a silly, everybody has had the question, why does a good God let bad things happen? So I'm not exactly asking that. Why do things always have to come? Why does it seem like things almost always come through negative means? Even if the end is good, our salvation had to come through Jesus dying.
Yeah.
And our nation had to come through bloody revolution and taking land,
Yeah.
and as did most countries, to be fair.
Sure.
Why can things just not be easy even sometimes? Why does everything have to go through? The Anglican Church started
through an annulment/divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you've answered your own question though, haven't you? I mean, it's the idea that what is good in the world is inherently contaminated by evil and sin and death. And we don't, here's the classic construction of understanding where we are in the world and history. You have the age of sin and death, which is the age post, Genesis 3 and beyond. So past the fall through to the end of time, age of sin and death. Jesus' death and resurrection happen, and with his resurrection comes the age of life and renewal. And there's a Venn diagram, if we could put this up on a screen, which we can't, you see the overlapping circles, and we as Christians live, as Paul talks about, in the next life. We live in the age that is to come. It has already broken in. This is classic Christian theology. But it's an overlap. We live in both of those. We partake in, we participate in the life that is to come, that's glorious, and we get the first fruits of that. We experience pieces of that in our own lives. But we live in that and participate in that within a greater environment, which is still stained by sin and death.
So how do we live in response to the fact that we have good gifts that come at a cost to somebody at some point?
Yeah, I think it's being aware, recognizing that, which should give you an appropriate response. We talked about this earlier. If you only think America is rainbows and butterflies, then you've probably missed certain realities beneath the surface or right at the surface. And on the other hand, if you think it's all poo-poo, then you've probably missed some of the benefits and blessings and the things that are good about our country. And I think with anything in life, I think it's soberly recognizing both and letting that produce an appropriate level of emptiness and longing for something better. We can be at any given moment grateful and feel full and feel like the days when I'm home with the kids in the late afternoon and it's dinner time almost, and I'm helping to distract the kids by taking them outside and play with them. And I feel so much gratitude for being a dad, for living in a home, for having grass in front of my house, and knowing that like this is a huge gift. But also, I'm aware of the fact that there are a lot of people that don't have a house, that don't have a yard in front of their house, that don't have kids, or their family situation's really hard. Both of those can be true. I think it takes Christian maturity to allow yourself to fully enjoy the blessings that come from God without, because there's a kind of, I think, guilt that comes from the enemy that's not from God that can be like, oh, but, well, God wants you to enjoy the gifts he gives you. But you can at the same time appropriately be aware of and grieve the reality that that's not true for everyone. And somehow you can experience both of those. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. I do think that takes practice, and I think it takes a level of development of what we're talking about, like appreciating the both and in life. And I think the appropriate Christian response to anything of that order, which is everything in life, right? Everything comes from the both and. To respond as a Christian means to like look at how humans respond in the biblical account. It's how we respond to life as people of both ages, the age of sin and death, the age of life, and let that direct us toward our true home, which is a renewed creation, and be agents working toward renewal. I mean, I did sign up to be a church planner. I agreed to do it. But Lord knows it comes with a lot of dying to oneself. It is not for the faint of heart, as you well know, as part of that process.
It's very much like being a parent.
Yeah, but I do it as people do their callings, right? Because I know it's part of the renewal process. I believe that what we're called to do is to be agents of new creation. And I think what we're doing is new creation, even if it's really hard at times.
So if God's going to come in and renew things anyway, does this work still matter?
I feel like you've asked questions that could be episodes upon themselves.
And maybe they will be in the future. So give me one sentence.
The one sentence, goodness gracious.
Or two or three.
Yeah, here's the easy answer is yes, it matters because it matters now. Meaning, C.S. Lewis said something about this, and I think it was from Mere Christianity, about the question of like, why should humans care about alleviating suffering? And I think his primary answer was just basically because it's right. Like it has an effect, and you don't always have to answer things from the prism of like, how does this make sense in the light of eternity? I think some questions are just like, it's common sense. Like it matters because it changes people's predicament right now. I think that's the one-line answer. There are other deeper, wider theological answers to that question, but I think ultimately we are to present a picture of the new creation now. That's vital, that people see and feel new creation in our midst. It's not just spoken about, but it's tangible. And I also think that what we do in this life, somehow, in ways that we can't fully describe, are brought into the new creation, or perhaps are already in it.
I think you could sum a lot of it up, and this is going to make me sound really smart, but it's really coming from you and things you've told me before. But there's a reason that we have physical bodies,
Mm-hmm.
that the world is like physical and tangible, and we touch things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way. And I don't know what that reason is. I trust that there is one, because when a painter or when an artist goes to make a piece of art,
Mm-hmm.
they choose whether to use marble or oil paints
Mm-hmm.
or acrylic paints or markers or whatever it is that they choose, because that is part of the artwork.
Yeah.
you can't make the art with nothing. And God is writing this story. He's creating this art that is like history, and he chose to do it with stuff.
Yeah.
That we call our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it is tainted. But I guess I can be grateful.
It's like when my kids combine all their clay colors and it just becomes brown. It's like all these pretty colors that are now just brown.
But I guess we can be grateful, and I can say Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
Because this is a pretty great place to live, especially Birmingham.
It is.
I love
and if
Birmingham.
you want to come down and visit us sometime, you're always welcome. Andrew will host you in his house.
Molly's going to have some words for you.
And we'd love to invite you to Restoration. We'd love to worship with you and get to know you and let you get to know us.
Look us up on Google. That's how everybody else finds us.
What is our website, Andrew?
I don't know.
Restoration,
BHA.
BHM.
Oh, BHM.
Like the airport code. .org.
.org.
That's it. All right. Well, this is
has
Accessibly Anglican.
A podcast for the Anglo-curious. Until next time.
See you later.
Goodbye.